What if you had a craving that you could just never satisfy? If your sweet tooth is yearning for these old-school treats, you might be out of luck forever.
Ice cream was never better than when it was shaped like a taco. The Choco Taco was a sweet treat that beautifully towed the line of somehow being both crispy and chewy at the same time. The creamy and crunchy medley of textures melded the taste of vanilla ice cream, chocolate, waffle cone, and nuts into a bite that was enough to satisfy any craving you happen to have. Since they always seem to know what the people are craving, Taco Bell even got in on the action and sold the chocolatey tacos at a few locations, meaning you could double fist tacos for an incredible dinner and dessert combo. Because nothing good lasts forever in this cold world we live in, Choco Tacos were discontinued in 2022.
Oh my god. No! They killed the Choco Taco!
It was a dark day for humanity, though for some, the writing had been on the wall for some time, as there were complaints that the quality of the treats had dipped since its Taco Bell glory days. In the final months of the Choco Taco's existence, Taco Bell brought them back for one last go-around, and Klondike seemed to offer some promising news on their future. But we've heard nothing else since 2022. All we're left with now are dreams of this sweet taco at its 90s chocolatey peak. Who dares go up against Little Debbie? Well, for a little while at least, Snackwell threw its hat into the ring. The David going up against the Debbie Goliath. But unlike the biblical hero, Snackwell couldn't bring down the giant, and the brand was discontinued in 2022. Snackwell's champion offering was the devilishly delicious Devil's Food Cake cookie cakes, a fan favorite during the 90s. But while Little Debbie may reign supreme, its own Devil's Food Cake offerings can only wish they had the power of Snackwell's cookie cakes. Snackwell's prided itself on offering a fat-free dessert, which 90s snackers sought out with vigor in between episodes of Seinfeld. Over on Reddit, the dessert is remembered fondly as a treat that many a user's parents or grandparents would offer them, thanks to its seemingly more healthy ingredients. While the memories may be strong with this one, many folks also love the cookies themselves. The chocolatey outer shell is one source of compliments for this cookie, and the interior consisted of marshmallow and Devil's Food Cake, a pretty simple pairing to enjoy on its own. Everyone screams for ice cream, and they scream even louder when it's in cake form. Viennetta ice cream cakes were sweet centerpieces of the 90s, rectangular confections that classed up whatever joint was graced with its presence. People bought into the swanky aura of Viennetta, even though in reality, you weren't breaking the bank by bringing them home at $5.50 a box. Looking like a slender lasagna, this fancified slab of ice cream featured multiple layers, with the best-known variety consisting of vanilla and chocolate ice cream, though a mint version was also popular. It was designed to be taken out of the box and served in elegant slices, but we're willing to bet all the money in our pockets that an entire Viennetta loaf was crushed in one sitting by people on the couch on multiple occasions. Sadly, Viennetta isn't widely sold in the States anymore, but it remains a more commonly available product in the UK and other countries who apparently like their ice cream with some class. You know a dessert is good when it can overcome having a convicted felon as its spokesperson. Jell-O pudding pops were a quintessential 90s food. Just the thought of chowing down on one of these sweet treats brings back memories of rollerblading around while playing with your Tamagotchi as you wait for your family's dial-up internet to load. No matter if you had the chocolate, vanilla, or a swirl of both, these confections on a stick were creamy, smooth, and satisfying. What's not to love about essentially biting into a frozen hunk of chocolate pudding on a hot summer day? But as great as they were, they're forever in the pop culture zeitgeist for the guy tasked with selling them to audiences everywhere. Hindsight is 2020, but at the time, Jell-O had a superstar spokesperson in Bill Cosby. Before the general public was aware of his heinous crimes, Cosby was considered the pinnacle of wholesome entertainment and a home run endorser for the brand.
I was eating a creamy Jell-O pudding pops, and this cow came over and told me how much she'd like to sit down and put her feet up and have creamy Jell-O pudding pops too.
No.
Despite being a pop culture mainstay and being downright delicious, pudding pops were discontinued by 2010, a few years before the downfall of their sweatered spokesperson. Those desperate for a frozen pudding fix can recreate a knockoff version with Jell-O pudding and popsicle-style molds, but nothing will recapture the power that pudding pops had during its peak. No, we're not talking about Incredibites, the currently available dog food with the same name as a delicious 90s treat. We're sure those are also tasty, but we'll let our canine friends make their own video about them. The Incredibites we're focusing on were single-serving packaged cookies targeted toward parents seeking new snack ideas for their kids. The tiny treats consisted of 2 hexagonal granola cookies with sweet filling wedged in the middle. They were less than bite-sized, but they left a big hole in our hearts when they went away. If any health-conscious snackers perked up at the prospect of a granola-based treat, don't be fooled, as these cookies were definitely a dessert. And now, they're definitely long gone.
Confound it. Why'd they have to go and upset the natural order of things?
Now you might be saying to yourself, wait a minute, McDonald's still serves apple pies. But before you begin writing us a strongly worded letter, you should know that we're talking about the deep-fried version of this fast food treat. Yes, the chain still offers a popular version of the mini pie, but these days it's baked instead of fried, and many people still long for its oil-dipped predecessor. Sure, the goopy filling of the fried version may have scalded a mouth or two in its heyday, but sometimes you gotta burn a few tongues to satisfy your sweet tooth. To get a taste of some fast-fried apples, you'll have to make your way down to Hawaii, zoom past the beautiful beaches, and make a beeline for the nearest Mickey D's. Or save the frequent flyer miles and head to the historic location in Downey, California, where the building is as vintage as its offerings. And if the West Coast is still a step too far, the cinnamon apple pie at Popeyes has been known by some to be a suitable, albeit less satisfying alternative. It's possible that you're of the opinion that granola bar brands are a dime a dozen, but in the 90s, there was one brand that reigned supreme. Though to be fair, it was less of a granola bar and more of a hunk of candy with a granola center. But don't worry, we won't tell your parents you are getting away with an extra helping of dessert.
Because sure, you want them to eat right, but why make their life harder than it already is?
Kudos were the granola bars that were welcome for anyone looking for a handheld sugar bomb and terrifying for any health-conscious folks out there. But before you came crashing down from all the sugar, the chocolatey goodness coursing through your body was a welcome respite on an otherwise mundane day. Pretty much any flavor Kudos offered was a home run, especially when they paired up with candy brands like M&M's and Snickers to pack even more sugar into a single offering. Any parents who tucked these snack bars into their kids' lunchboxes as a healthy treat were clearly deluding themselves, though they inadvertently turned their child into the coolest cat in the cafeteria. But it all came to an end when Kudos were officially discontinued by 2017, and the Mars company that created them never provided a detailed explanation about why they decided to ruin our day by taking them away from us. Philadelphia cheesecake snack bars were an edible delight that likely resulted in a few instances of parents keeping a stash of them hidden away from the kids. Sure, it might have led to a family squabble or two, but they were so good that it was worth all the fighting. Sadly, Philadelphia cheesecake snack bars were hidden away from all of us some 20 years ago, discontinued before their time to go, which was never. But we still have our memories of this sweet treat, and those memories have led to some people taking action to bring back the snack bar, as evidenced by an online petition that's garnered over 51,000 backers. It seems, though, that the Philadelphia brand knew it was a popular product they were axing. The reason for the snack bar's discontinuation was reportedly production difficulties. Unless someone out there can whip up a manufacturing breakthrough for the company, it looks like we won't see these cheesecake bars returning anytime soon. Now we come to the only entry on our list that could be accused of bribery, the Nestle Wonder Ball and the sweet, sweet prizes it hid underneath. Originally released as the Magic Ball, this hollow chocolate sphere somehow made the fact that kids were getting chocolate the second most exciting thing about the candy treat. After opening both the small box and eating their way through the chocolate container, lucky children of the 90s were gifted small toys like figurines from popular cartoons and movies. Later on, the toys were swapped with candy pieces due to kids being so deep into munch mode that the figurines inside became choking hazards. Still, candy inside candy. Eat your heart out, Inception! In 2004, Nestle made one of the many choices that valued money over people and sold the Wonder Ball brand to the Frankfurt Candy Company. While Frankfurt may still release the occasional Wonder Ball product, the brand is not prominently featured among the company's primary roster of sugary offerings. And even if you get your hands on one, many have insisted that it simply isn't the same. The snack that children of the 90s used to trick their parents into thinking they were eating something healthy, Planters PB Crisps were very much a dessert. Very on brand, these crisps were in the same shape of peanuts with shells, with the shell actually being a crispy cookie exterior. Hidden inside was peanut butter cream, while other varieties contained chocolate or a PB&J blend with strawberry filling and peanut butter together. If you open your window and listen closely, you can likely hear at least one person screaming to the heavens to bring the crisps back into their lives. This dessert snack hybrid was so beloved that there's a whole website dedicated to bringing them back, and the campaign has spread across social media. They're unlikely to ever grace our lunchboxes ever again, but the fact that there's such a dedicated cult following of the dessert should tell you all you need to know about how beloved they were. The offering that would have left Chef Boyardee aghast, Little Caesars earned many fans with their toasted ravioli filled with molten chocolate. Actually, this pasta-inspired dessert wasn't made with pasta at all. Instead, the ravioli pasta was made from white chocolate, and the inside was filled with milk chocolate cream. Little Caesars was rocking with this cute dessert from around the mid-80s to the late 90s, selling them for under $1 and conveniently stapling them directly onto pizza boxes. Little Caesars must have their reasons, but with their dessert selections being pretty minimal and a strong online push to have them bring back the double dose of chocolate, it seems like an absolute win for everyone if this 90s treat was brought back from the dead.
Good humor has been providing the world with tasty ice cream classics since the early 1900s. Its first ice cream bar was invented in 1920, which was quickly followed by the world's first ever fleet of ice cream trucks. Over the decades, the brand grew and grew, producing some of the most beloved iconic frozen treats in the United States, including Fat Frog, an ice cream bar shaped like a plump amphibian. It was fruity and fun, with green ice cream and 2 chewy gumballs for eyes. It was also beloved in Ireland, where it was sold under the brand name HB. And for all you ice cream lovers who are also business nerds, you might like to know that Good Humor and HB are operated by Unilever. The brands are part of Heart Brand, a multinational ice cream group. Ben & Jerry's is another iconic ice cream brand that also just so happens to be owned by Unilever. It was founded in 1978 in Vermont by Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, and it's since become a worldwide favorite that's sold in more than 40 countries. Its most beloved flavors include classics like chocolate chip cookie dough and chocolate fudge brownie, though it has also retired many varieties to what's known as its flavor graveyard, including Cool Britannia, consisting of vanilla ice cream laced with strawberries and fudge shortbread. Cool Britannia was available in the mid-90s, but it wasn't meant to last forever. In 1998, it was laid to rest for a few reasons, primarily because British customers just couldn't get on board with it. This despite the fact that Ben & Jerry's created it after receiving 7,000 entries in a competition to make a great British flavor. An American won the contest by paying tribute to the patriotic, though controversial, British song Rule Britannia, which has been criticized for its association with colonialism. Harold Brooks Baker of Burke's Peerage, a London-based publisher of genealogy books, told the Tampa Bay Times in 1996, "Can't they think of something new rather than borrowing from the blood of the nation's past? I think at best it's simply silly." Another vintage favorite from Good Humor was Vampire's Secret, which boasted a black exterior and a cherry sauce center. Though it was Halloween-themed, it was available year-round, making it one of the most iconic food truck classics of the 90s. Many fans have since demanded a revival of Vampire's Secret on social media, but it's yet to make a comeback. A similar ice pop was sold in UK stores where it went by the name of Dracula.
I've been brought to life in a horrifyingly real iced lolly from Walls.
In 2013, Walls started selling Dracula ice cream bars in the UK once again. Though similar in appearance to Vampire's Secret, they were a little different in flavor. Instead of a cherry interior, they were filled with strawberry jelly and vanilla ice cream. According to Walls' kids brand manager Florence Howell, the company decided to launch the Dracula Ice Pops because of a demand for retro flavors. Then in 2024, Walls brought Dracula back once again, this time in a multi-pack of retro-inspired flavors. In the 1960s, there was no escaping Beatlemania, as young women around the world were screaming for John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And you know what else they were screaming for? That's right, ice cream! That's because Baskin-Robbins got in on the Fab Four fun by launching a flavor called Beetle Nut, which consisted of pistachio ice cream, chocolate, and walnuts. Beetle Nut was a hit, but it was eventually retired to Baskin-Robbins' Deep Freeze. It was nearly resurrected in 2011 when the brand announced a competition to bring back one of its vintage flavors. Beetle Nut was one of 30 options in the running, but ultimately a different pistachio-based variety, pistachio almond fudge, emerged as the victor. Good Humor pops up once again with Bubblegum Swirl, a bubblegum-flavored ice cream bar with a swirly blue and pink pattern. This frozen dessert was designed to taste like gumballs, although it didn't actually contain any, unlike the Fat Frog. While it may not be available anymore, there are some similar versions sold outside of the US. In the British supermarket chain Iceland, there's an ice pop called Bubblegum Swirl Lollies, which is made with skim milk, spirulina, and beetroot concentrate, which helps to create that signature cotton candy-style swirly pattern. Like Good Humor's original version, these popsicles aren't available in the US. But anyone who is in the mood for a frozen bubblegum sweet treat can check out Baskin-Robbins' Pink Bubblegum, which combines its pink bubblegum-flavored ice cream with bits of candy. Pennsylvania brand Turkey Hill offers a wide range of ice cream flavors like black cherry, cookie butter, and homemade vanilla. In 2017, the brand launched a competition to bring back some of its oldest flavors, and in the running was strawberry rhubarb pie, which was developed to taste just like the popular dessert. Originally launched in the mid-90s and retired in 2001, strawberry rhubarb pie featured strawberry ice cream that was packed with shortbread pieces and rhubarb swirls. Unfortunately, though, strawberry rhubarb pie didn't win the contest, so it remains locked away in Turkey Hill's Flavor Vault. It lost its round to Sticky Bun, another favorite from the late 90s. Edie's has been creating delicious ice cream since 1928, when it was founded by ice cream maker William Dreyer and candy maker Joseph Edie. Nowadays, the company actually operates under both founders' names. It's known as Edie's to the east of the Rocky Mountains and Dreyer's to the west. This popular brand offers an extensive range of flavors, including classics like cookies and cream and mint chocolate chip.
Evidently, it's not your normal ice cream.
In the 80s, Edie's launched its Grand Light range of ice creams, which were 93% fat-free. This was on brand for the era, as the American government was urging everyone to significantly reduce their fat intake for health reasons. This line stuck around until the early 2000s. It was replaced by another new line called Slow Churned in 2004. Slow Churned was a huge success, and it's still around today, offering reduced fat flavors like Caramel Delight and Chocolate Chip. Bubble Play was yet another ice cream truck staple from Good Humor that was first offered back in the 90s. It contained a gumball in the shape of a baseball that sat in a cherry-flavored ice pop, which was shaped like a glove. It wasn't the easiest frozen treat to eat, thanks to its unique shape and the combination of bubblegum and ice pop, though it was nevertheless a mainstay on ice cream truck menus of the era. Bubble Play isn't widely available in American stores or ice cream trucks anymore, though Good Humor continues to offer plenty of other bars and popsicles to keep us cool in the hotter months. There's the Strawberry Shortcake Bar, which is covered in cake and filled with strawberry and vanilla ice cream. There's also the ultra-refreshing Celero Lime Bar, the Chocolate Chip Cookie Sandwich, and the Chemise Coconut and Pineapple Bar. Another dearly departed entry from Turkey Hill is Death by Chocolate, which was just about as chocolatey as chocolate ice cream could possibly get, consisting of dark chocolate ice cream with dark chocolate chips and brownie batter fudge. It was originally sold from 1992 until 1998, and then it was part of Turkey Hill's Revival Contest in 2017. It even managed to make it to the final 8. In the end, though, it was defeated by Caramel Brownie Overload. Other vintage favorites from Turkey Hill include Tin Lizzie Sundae, which consisted of a vanilla base with caramel fudge and chocolate peanuts, and Snickerdoodle Dandy, which was made up of cinnamon ice cream, along with Snickerdoodle cookies and swirls of cinnamon caramel. Another resident of Ben & Jerry's flavor graveyard is Rainforest Crunch, which lasted a full decade on the shelves from 1989 until 1999. A mix of vanilla ice cream, cashews, and Brazil nuts, it was a popular flavor, though it was also controversial. While the brand stated that the profits made from the ice cream would help to support indigenous nut cooperatives, the reality was that it was reportedly sourcing only 5% of the nuts from small Brazilian suppliers, while the rest were coming from agribusinesses. Fortunately, Ben & Jerry's appears to have learned from this controversy, and it's launched several purpose-driven flavors in the years since. These include Save Our Swirled, which was developed to encourage climate crisis action, as well as the dairy-free Change the World, which was created with footballer-turned-activist Colin Kaepernick and supported the nonprofit Know Your Rights Camp. Rainforest Crunch and Cool Britannia are far from the only nostalgic flavors in Ben & Jerry's flavor graveyard. There's Holy Cannoli, a ricotta and pistachio ice cream with cannoli pieces, which was laid to rest in 1998. Then, in 1999, the brand retired its chocolate comfort flavor, which was filled with low-fat chocolate truffle ice cream. And in 2001, it said goodbye to Bovinity Divinity, a milk chocolate ice cream with white fudge cow pieces. Another long-gone Good Humor treat is the Great White, a lemon-flavored white ice cream bar in the shape of a shark fin. It was a popular choice for many hungry folks in the 90s, but it's sadly no longer on the shelves. Hope isn't completely lost, though. You can go look up Good Humor's 90s back catalog on the brand's website and click the Request a Comeback button. But if you don't want to just wait around for the Great White to resurface from the deep, you can make your own shark-themed ice pops in the meantime. All you need is a few shark-shaped ice cream bar molds. Simply fill them up with your favorite juices and fruits, pop them in the freezer, wait overnight, and they're ready to eat. Pro tip: use lemon if you're going for an authentic Great White tribute.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Next on our list of throwbacks is yet another classic ice pop from Good Humor. And this time, you better take cover, because it's a very hungry carnivore. We're of course talking about the brand's signature Dinosaur Bar, which was another staple of the 90s ice cream trucks. Similar to the Bubble Play, the Dinosaur Bar featured a bright red gumball on the body of the green, fruity dinosaur-shaped bar.
It's a dinosaur.
Popular novelty foods often reflect the pop culture of their era, so it's no surprise that dinosaur bars were big around the same time that the first Jurassic Park movie came out. Dinosaurs and dinosaur-themed products have pretty much always been popular with little kids, and that was perhaps never more true than in the 90s. Screwballs were, without a doubt, an ice cream truck go-to in the 70s. Good Humor's version consisted of a cup of slushed ice with a gumball hidden at the bottom. You could usually find these sweet frozen treats in two flavors, cherry and blue raspberry. If you wanted an extra gumball, then you could opt for the two-ball screwball. In the UK, screwball fans can still buy frozen desserts inspired by the iconic sweet treat, though they're not quite the same as the original. At the supermarket chain Asda, for example, the cup is the same shape, but instead of a slushy filling, it contains a vanilla mousse, which is covered with raspberry ripple sauce. And just like the iconic version from Good Humor, there is a hidden bubblegum ball at the bottom of this variety as well.
Evolving trends, modern appetites, and dietary concerns have all conspired against it, but Ambrosia Salad still has a fascinating and fruity story to tell. Ambrosia Salad enjoyed its heyday in the 20th century, and its many iterations reflected some of the emerging innovations in the culinary world of the time. Its popularity really took off in the 1920s, when Philadelphia-based confectionery Stephen F. Whitman & Son paid food columnists to subtly advertise its newly invented marshmallow whip. The company secured rave reviews from trusted sources, and recipes for Ambrosia Salad that included the marshmallow substance began appearing in the newspapers. By the time that individually shaped marshmallows hit the scene in the same decade, the flavor was inextricably linked to the dish. Over time, home cooks started incorporating modern additions such as condensed milk and fruit-flavored gelatin, but Cool Whip was the one that really stuck. Created by General Foods in 1966, this extra fluffy alternative to homemade whipped cream saved time and had a sugary flavor all its own. It quickly became the foundation for other sweet salads of the era, and it was a natural fit for Ambrosia. All the way up through the 1980s, this decadent dish could be found in many Southern households.
Cool Whip? Cool Whip, yeah. You mean Cool Whip? Yeah, Cool Whip.
Ambrosia salad may have peaked in the 20th century, but its story begins even earlier. The first ambrosia recipe is attributed to a North Carolina author whose 1867 cookbook, Dixie Cookery, a practical cookbook for Southern housekeepers, contains just 3.5 lines of text under the heading Ambrosia. It's a bare-bones recipe that only involves grated coconut, sugar, and pulped oranges. Aside from the omission of cream, it sets out the basic components of what the dish would become. One of the reasons ambrosia salad may have been so popular in the latter half of the 19th century was that its ingredients were exciting and new. Recently built railroads connected Florida, the orange-growing capital of the United States, with the rest of the country. They also ferried coconuts across the U.S. from California, where they were delivered on ships from the Pacific Islands and South America. A salad made of oranges, sugar, and grated coconut may not sound particularly adventurous nowadays, but in post-Civil War America, its flavors were exotic symbols of the country's new culinary variety. Then in the 1880s, the introduction of tropical pineapple added an extra layer of exotic allure. Cream was soon added, possibly to counterbalance the fruit's tanginess. One reason for ambrosia salad falling out of favor may be that its once novel ingredients are now easily accessible. Oranges, coconuts, and pineapples can now be found pretty much everywhere. Even marshmallows were exotic in the early 20th century. And when pre-whipped toppings like Cool Whip hit grocery store shelves in the 1960s, there was something deliciously modern about throwing together a colorful dessert with nothing but pre-packaged items. But nowadays, you can walk into a name-brand grocery store and find the likes of acai, halloumi, matcha, and all manner of ingredients that originate from other countries. By comparison, fruit salad with cream just isn't all that exciting anymore, especially when most of the ingredients come from a can. Ambrosia salad is often served at buffet-style holiday parties. This makes it easier to gloss over the fact that there's no consensus about whether it's a dessert or a side dish. Is it a decadent alternative to cranberry sauce that belongs next to the turkey, or a colorful dessert that belongs next to the pumpkin pie and the Yule log? Neither of these options is fully satisfying. Cranberry sauce works well with savory flavors because its tartness is a natural palate cleanser that cuts through the richness of the rest of the meal. Ambrosia is sickly sweet in comparison, and the creamy sauce provides no contrast to the creaminess of mashed potatoes and gravy. But if you try to make it a dessert, ambrosia has too much cream and sugar to qualify as a healthy alternative to pie and cake. And its resemblance to a fruit salad prevents it from being a satisfying guilty pleasure. In short, it's a tough dish to categorize, and no matter where you place it in the buffet, buffet, someone is going to end up feeling shortchanged.
I noticed that you have not tasted any of the Ambrosia salad that I made especially for you.
Marshmallows, coconut, pineapple chunks, mandarin oranges, and cream are the basic ingredients in Ambrosia salad. If that doesn't immediately make you start salivating, you're not alone. At first glance, this ingredient list raises a few questions. Is this salad watery from the fruit juice? Does the whipped cream deflate and harden? Is the coconut adding any flavor, or does it just increase the chewing time? The answers depend on the recipe and preparation. If you don't drain the fruit thoroughly, it can lead to an unappetizing puddle at the bottom of the bowl. If there isn't enough whipped cream or the cream is over-whipped, it can harden into a dense, stale coating. And depending on how you feel about coconut, that added texture might be a nuisance rather than a delightful contrast. The components of Ambrosia salad are simply not obviously harmonious on paper, which might prevent those who haven't tried it from giving it a whirl. With the right proportion of ingredients, it can be greater than the sum of its parts, but a big leap of faith is required to give it a try in the first place. In the middle of the 20th century, Americans had what can be considered an anything-goes approach to food. Jell-O, Spam, and imitation cheese were all thought to be fit for human consumption. But the 1980s put an end to all that. Saturated fat and natural sugars were out, while aerobics and bran flakes were in. This seismic shift was partly due to the government's introduction of dietary goals in 1977. In the interest of reducing heart disease, the guidelines urged Americans to eat less fat. Its claims that fat was inherently bad for health have since been debunked, but the damage was done, as grocery stores soon overflowed with fat-free diet foods. Products that had once delighted consumers, like whipped cream, canned fruit, and desiccated coconut, were thrown out in favor of Snackwells, Splenda, and fat-free Cool Whip. During this era, the creamy, sugary decadence of Ambrosia salad was more of an embarrassing reminder of an uninformed past than a symbol of the health-conscious present. If you look at the ingredient list of maraschino cherries and Cool Whip, you'll probably notice a big red flag in the form of high-fructose corn syrup. In the 1970s, the cost of cane sugar and sugar beets was skyrocketing due to tariffs and quotas that the U.S. government imposed on international imports. With a sharp increase in demand for sugar, American manufacturers started looking for a cheap alternative. High-fructose corn syrup, a newly discovered chemical conversion of the glucose in cornstarch to fructose, was their saving grace. But then in the early 2000s, research began to quell the frenzied demand for this cheap sugar alternative. As it turned out, high-fructose corn syrup increases your appetite, triggers cholesterol production, and compromises the intestinal lining. Between 2003 and 2008, Americans' consumption of corn syrup fell 11%. The sweetener became such a pariah that in 2010, the Corn Refiners Association unsuccessfully petitioned the Food and Drug Administration to rename high-fructose corn syrup as corn sugar. This dawning awareness of the drawbacks of the ingredient may have contributed to the decline of Ambrosia salad and other foods that contain a lot of it. Ambrosia salad used to appeal to the newfound joys of culinary convenience. The availability of pre-whipped cream, pulped oranges, and pre-shredded coconut meant that housewives could easily whip up a batch of this fluffy dish in just a few minutes. How these previously perishable ingredients could suddenly now have an indefinite shelf life was secondary to how much they transformed home cooking. But over time, consumers started asking questions about processed food, and many of them didn't like the answers. Ultra-processed foods are made of ingredients that you're unlikely to use at home, such as preservatives, colorings, and all those unpronounceable words on the back of packages. Their raw materials undergo a dizzying number of phases that drain them of their nutrients. Consequently, ultra-processed foods have been linked to heart disease, obesity, and type 2 diabetes, causing many consumers to seek more wholesome alternatives. For anyone trying to avoid these ingredients, Ambrosia salad is now off the table.
Bye-bye.
Although Ambrosia salad was adored by home cooks across the country in the 1800s, it's nowadays found mostly in the South. The fact that oranges were grown largely in Florida during this period and were therefore readily available in the region may be a factor, but there's no single reason for this shift. Culinary trends may also bear some responsibility. In the early 1900s, Ambrosia salad started to be labeled as a Southern dish. This was also a time when an influx of immigrants to major U.S. cities was bringing new flavors and cooking styles that diverted tastes away from popular 19th century fare. Then in the 1960s, celebrity chefs like Julia Child and Jacques Jacques Pepin brought French cooking to the attention of the masses. Suddenly, homegrown dishes like Ambrosia Salad couldn't compete with the sophistication of something like crème brûlée. Although none of these factors can fully explain the association that grew between Ambrosia Salad and the South, they all likely played a role. And even as Southern food has seen a spike in popularity in recent decades, Ambrosia Salad still maintains a vanishingly low profile outside the region. If you saw Ambrosia Salad on a food-themed dating app, you almost certainly wouldn't swipe right. It offers neither the obvious visual appeal of a molten chocolate lava cake nor the complexity of a many-layered parfait. Instead, it's a shapeless, fluffy mass punctuated by mostly unidentifiable lumps. So unless you already knew what you're getting, you'd probably take a hard pass.
It's like thanks, but no thanks.
Living in the 21st century means that we're constantly bombarded with meticulously staged images of food. A 2017 poll found that 69% of millennials take a photo or video of their meals before eating. Simply put, we can't get enough pictures of unicorn frappuccinos or strawberry glazed donuts. Ambrosia Salad, on the other hand, isn't exactly winning any social media beauty contests. Perhaps if someone made a version of Ambrosia Salad with distinct layers of glistening fruit and creamy Cool Whip to show off its ingredients, it might become more popular. But in its classic guise, it lacks the vibrancy, definition, and camera-ready drama that we've come to expect from our desserts. It may be delicious, but that hardly matters when you require a lavish photograph before digging in. Retro foods are constantly being reinvented and reintroduced to new generations of eaters, as up-and-coming cooks are full of innovative ideas for reimagining old favorites. But Ambrosia Salad remains hopelessly dated. There's no corner of social media dedicated to a matcha version or a recent cookbook full of fresh variations on the classic recipe. You're much more likely to find this salad on the menu of a retro 50s diner than the latest culinary hotspot in a major city. Like other dessert salads from the 70s, such as Watergate salad or cranberry fluff, Ambrosia is resolutely stuck in the 20th century. That doesn't mean that it completely lacks any appeal. On the contrary, its old-fashioned charm is what makes it such a nostalgic dish for many, and its sweet creaminess and bursts of tropical flavor hit all the right notes when you're looking for an unexpected alternative to cake or ice cream. All of those factors make it ripe for reinvention. It may not be destined for the meteoric rise of cronuts or cloud bread, but in its own quiet way, Ambrosia Salad is just waiting for a new wave of chefs to discover it.
Some desserts stand the test of time, and it's fair to say that the Mississippi mud pie is one of them. Although it has a distinctly retro feel, you'll still find it in down-to-earth eateries and diners, both in its namesake state and across the country. Exactly how it was invented is slightly unclear, although some folks see it as a more modern version of the previously popular Mississippi mud cake, a similar dessert that rose to prominence after World War II. Because Mississippi mud pie was so easy to make at home, countless people developed their own recipes and interpretations of its deep, rich flavors. At its core, though, it's pretty simple and recognizable. Layers of brownie-like filling, chocolate creamer custard, and a marshmallow topping sit in a delicious biscuit base. Excuse us while we go and whip one up right now. There's just nothing quite like rice pudding. Nowadays, it may be dismissed as an unappealing dessert that combines relentless starchiness with a lumpy texture and not quite enough sweetness to distract from the grains, but back in the 70s, it was, well,
I'm kind of a big deal.
Rice pudding was actually invented thousands of years ago, although in the United States it started appearing on dinner menus in the 1920s. It fit in perfectly with the standard cuisine in those roadside establishments with a homely feel that slotted perfectly next to meatloaf, steak, and mashed potatoes. It was also easy enough to make from scratch in big batches and keep warm until people drifted in from the highway. By the 70s, it was pretty much everywhere, although it was usually reserved to people's homes and more down-to-earth establishments instead of higher-end restaurants. Call us old-fashioned, but we usually prefer food that tastes good instead of being named after a political scandal. The Watergate cake got its moniker in 1972, shortly after its namesake scandal that led to the downfall of President Richard Nixon. The reason the name was bestowed is a little complicated, though. Apparently, it's because the cake contains a bunch of nuts under a distracting layer of bright, pleasing icing. Which is to say, the inside holds the truth, whereas the outside is what Nixon wanted us to see.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Interestingly enough, the Watergate cake had already been around for a while, having existed in various forms since the 1950s. It's made with a yellow or white cake mix combined with pistachio pudding, which is then covered in chopped pecans and coconut flakes. When the Watergate story broke, it was quickly refashioned and a legend was born. The hummingbird cake was conceived in the comfort and warmth of a home kitchen. In February 1978, a Mrs. L.H. Wiggins of Greensboro, North Carolina submitted the recipe to Southern Living magazine. Plenty of hungry people immediately fell in love with its balance of fruity and nutty flavors, and it eventually became Southern Living's most searched-for recipe by readers in the South.
I remember this from when my mom would do it, and if you don't do this one right, it can get real soupy.
The hummingbird cake combines the familiar and the unexpected. It starts out kind of like a banana cake, with slightly browning chopped bananas combined with flour, sugar, eggs, cinnamon, baking soda, and chopped nuts. But things take a hard left when chopped pineapples are thrown into the mix, giving the cake a tropical sweetness that stops it from becoming too squidgy and dense. Then the whole thing is layered together with cream cheese frosting in between each slab of cake, and it's crowned with toasted pecan halves that provide a pleasing crunch. Jell-O cookies are an undeniably retro affair that harnessed the unique power of Jell-O, which was a staple of recipes during the decade. But that was just one ingredient, sitting alongside more standard additions like flour, butter, and sugar in the batter. The addition of Jell-O accomplished several things. The first was providing a sweet, tart flavor, which made each bite a far fruitier affair than a standard wafer. The second was to dye each cookie a fairly lurid color, producing classic pastels that were a staple of sweet food during the decade. Finally, the gelatin in the Jell-O powder imparted an undeniable squishiness and moistness, and while they weren't quite jellied, they definitely had a softer texture than most cookies. They're a little hard to find today, but they're always a treat when you do. Robert Redford was one of the biggest sex symbols of the 70s, so in a way it makes perfect sense that there would be a cake named after him. Its full title was actually the Better Than Robert Redford cake, and it even had a more risque alternate moniker, the Better Than Sex cake.
Oh my.
Essentially, it was designed to be the ultimate in appeal and desire, even more so than the hunkiest actor on the block. The Robert Redford cake is most commonly made by pouring sweetened condensed milk over a pre-made chocolate cake and then scooping on caramel ice cream. It's then popped into the fridge for things to set before being covered in whipped cream and crushed Heath bars. Other forms have existed, with some made from a yellow cake mix and baked from scratch, but it's the crunchy caramel-inflected version that's the most popular. 7-Up cake was actually a pretty simple concoction, combining eggs, flour, butter, and sugar with a relatively small amount of its namesake citrusy soda and some lemon extract. The whole thing was baked in a bundt or a tube pan and then finished with a dusting of powdered sugar. Although it was short on ingredients, we're willing to bet that 7-Up cake packed a serious punch, and the added sugar put it at risk of tipping over into tooth-aching territory. Having said this, the carbonated 7-Up provides a light effervescence that cuts through the insistent sugariness and citrusy notes. Because it was so simple to make, it was a staple of bake sales and school cakewalks.
Make 7 up yours.
The 70s weren't just a bold culinary time in the US. Over in the UK, home cooks and chefs alike were also starting to really jazz up their flavors. Butterscotch tart is a prime example, as it combined the familiar and the slightly more interesting. It was a mainstay of school dinners, and its popularity was largely attributable to how easy it was to make. Butterscotch tart starts with a simple base made from flour, margarine, and sugar, which is usually pressed into a fairly large tray. After being baked, a butterscotch filling made from brown sugar, milk, butter, and a little bit of flour was poured in and left to set. The result was a tart that could be sliced into dozens of rectangles for a bunch of hungry kids, and one that had super accessible flavors that still had a slightly caramelized, nutty, and mature twist. It was typically served with a glug of lurid yellow, slightly lumpy custard, and it's just as good today as it was back then. Anyone who knows their cocktails knows that the Harvey Wallbanger is a pretty retro affair. It combines vodka, orange juice, and Galliano liqueur for a sweet, citrusy, ever so slightly spicy beverage. If you're thinking, hey, those flavors sound like they'd be delicious in cake form, then have we got a treat for you. The Harvey Wallbanger cake began to appear in the 70s, around the same time that the cocktail was at the peak of its popularity. Early mentions in advertisements for fry pans indicate that this was originally a flat loaf cake that combined yellow cake mix with the cocktail's ingredients, with vanilla pudding powder thrown in for good measure. It was then topped with a gooey glaze for an extra burst of sweetness. Folks fell in love with its moistness and surprising subtlety. Sadly, its appeal began to wane when the cocktail started to go out of fashion, but we bet that it would still hit the spot just as well today. The 70s were definitely a time when people loved to turn cocktails into cakes. The concept of one that combines tequila and orange juice used to be all the rage around the time that the tequila sunrise became super popular. A tequila sunrise poke cake was a pretty processed affair, made by combining boxed cake mix with orange-flavored gelatin before throwing in tequila, water, eggs, and oil. It was then finished off with tubed whipped topping for a further burst of sugar. Before the topping was spread onto the cake, though, there was one more step. You would poke it with a toothpick and then pour over grenadine. This would then seep into the cake, giving its interior a two-tone appearance that somewhat resembled the orange and red look of the cocktail.
Baked Alaska may have first been created in the 1800s in celebration of the US acquiring the Alaskan territory, but it really rose in popularity in the 1950s. By the 60s, people still couldn't get enough of it. It was called a surprise cake, as you don't see its ice cream cake interior coming from its torched whipped meringue on the outside. It's a dessert that's meant to impress your guests, and it isn't actually as hard to make as it might seem. We've started to see a comeback of Baked Alaska in recent years, with seasonal trendy riffs like chai, caramelized peaches, and pumpkin spice. Some restaurants have started putting Baked Alaska back on their dessert menus, but your best bet will likely be to attempt this creation at home. Dates have long been a popular dessert ingredient thanks to their inherent sweetness. Date bars were created by mixing chewy dates with copious amounts of sugar, then combining with a buttery crust, baking, and cutting them into squares. Also known as matrimonial cake by Canadians, date bars go back as early as the 1930s, with the bars being a staple in the 1953 Joy of Cooking edition. Bars and other date-themed desserts got big in the 60s, but the versatility of dates has carried on to current times. If you look at any protein bar label, you'll likely find dates listed as a sweetener. You may not think of dates right away when you think of a sophisticated dessert, but we think these buttery, old-fashioned bars can give a nod to the recipes of the 60s and be a delicious, sorta healthy treat. If you're looking for a pink dessert, look no further than this classic party cake. Pink champagne cake contains, obviously, champagne or sparkling rosé and gets its pink hue naturally from strawberries or a touch of food coloring if you want to cut corners. Known for its airy texture, pink champagne cake was traditionally paired with a Bavarian cream or coconut filling. In more recent years, buttercream has been used as a substitute for both the filling and icing. The pink champagne cake is thought to have originated on the West Coast in the 50s and 60s. It was so popular in the West, it was said to be one of the most requested recipes from the Los Angeles Times decades ago. The cake had a reign of popularity across the country from 1961 to 1965, and though it might not be as much of a mainstay these days, this classy pink cake could just be the perfect choice for that next party in need of a splash of color and some bubbly.
What's for dessert? Hello. With things the milkman brings.
The 60s and Jell-O are almost synonymous. Jell-O had a place on the table in many a household at the time, and while you can still find Jell-O available on store shelves and in hospitals today, the molded cake formations made that were so widely popularized in the 60s are not typically on the dessert radar these days. The iconic Jell-O salad allowed your creativity to shine. You could even make your Jell-O sparkling with champagne for the fancy adult dinner party. Or for a more kid-friendly sparkling Jell-O approach, add the lemon-lime soda of your choice. While we may pass on bringing back some of the more unusual pairings, like Jell-O with seafood or vegetables, Jell-O mold cakes with their see-through additions like fruit or marshmallows are both fun and tasty. Spumoni wasn't invented in the 60s. Its origins reportedly date back to late 19th century Italy. When Italians immigrated to the States in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they brought the recipe along with them. During the 60s, spumoni was a particularly popular dessert at steakhouses and supper clubs. And while its close cousin Neapolitan ice cream is still sold by retailers nationwide, it's surprisingly difficult to get a single scoop of spumoni nowadays. What set spumoni apart from your average frozen confection was the rather involved process of producing it. Its name comes from the Italian word spuma, meaning foam, and to make spumoni correctly, 3 different flavors of gelato must be blended with whipped cream before being combined into a fluffy and sweet frozen treat. After the gelato is perfectly airy, mix-ins like nuts, amaretto cookies, and candied fruit are added before it's frozen solid, offering additional texture that transcends your typical ice cream scoop. The most traditional flavors of gelato used are pistachio, vanilla, and cherry. Not coincidentally, when these are layered in the proper order, spumoni closely resembles an Italian flag. While spumoni may not be easy to find at stores, if you have some time to spare, you can whip up your own. When National Spumoni Day rolls around on August 21st, you'll be ready. This vintage dessert is arguably still relevant. There's a whole restaurant dedicated to the fondue pot.
Don't just make a reservation, make a genuine connection. Savor every moment at the melting pot.
Fondue originated in Switzerland as a melted cheese dip, but didn't reach the Americas until it made its debut at the 1964 New York World's Fair. By the late 60s, early 70s, fondue had become ridiculously popular. The original chocolate fondue recipe included Toblerone chocolate, heavy cream, and Swiss firewater, but has since been modified to include all types of sweet and salty varieties. You can usually find chocolate fondue served with graham crackers, fruit like bananas or strawberries, angel food cake or pound cake, brownies, and even Rice Krispies treats. The customization makes chocolate fondue an easy way to please all palates. This dessert deserves a place at your table if you want to enhance a party with an interactive after-dinner display. The chiffon cake has roots tied to the West Coast in 1927. It's said that insurance salesman turned caterer Harry Baker created the recipe but kept it a secret for 2 decades, only selling the cake to the Hollywood elite. General Mills was able to buy the recipe from Baker in 1947 and published it in a Betty Crocker pamphlet the following year. And from there, the chiffon cake exploded in popularity with baking contests. The secret ingredient was using vegetable oil instead of shortening. The recipe, called the first new cake recipe in 100 years, also separated the eggs from the egg whites. The dessert graced dining tables throughout the 60s, but has since become more of a rarity. Though you'll see chiffon cakes in specialty bakeries, you'll likely be hard-pressed to find them at your local grocer. If you're more of a pie person, there's a chiffon for you too. That version also has West Coast roots. It was invented in 1926 by Monroe Boston Strauss, aka the Pie King. The chiffon pie is known for its light, airy filling thanks to a combination of egg whites and gelatin, as well as its signature graham cracker crust. In 1948, baking giant Duncan Hines repopularized the chiffon pie with a recipe that's still circulating today. Chocolate mousse hit the height of its popularity in the mid-20th century, thanks to both the 1950s Betty Crocker cookbook and a 1961 Julia Child cookbook. You'd be hard-pressed not to find chocolate mousse on a trendy dessert menu or at a dinner party through the 70s, but then it slipped out of the limelight. The exact reason why is unclear, but some have attributed it to the diet culture that took over the 80s. The good news is that chocolate mousse appears to be making a comeback in recent years. The authentic French recipes a la Julia Child typically include some sort of liqueur and good quality chocolate.
You want to melt it in 1/4 of a cup of flavoring, and I'm going to melt it in dark rum.
But there are plenty of quick and easy chocolate mousse recipes that take less technique, but are still tasty and pay tribute to the treat of the 60s. Serve your chocolate mousse of choice in vintage glass dessert cups with a dollop of whipped cream for the full retro vibe. The crown jewel cake is another fun jello-themed dessert with whimsical colors and unique textures. Also called the broken window glass cake, it was so popular in the 50s and 60s that it even ran on the back of jello boxes. The crown jewel cake has a layer of either white cake or graham cracker crust, a creamy filling, and bold-colored gelatin cubes throughout that sparkle like jewels. You can utilize a spring-form pan, a mold, or a pie pan. To shortcut your way to a crown jewel cake, you can use boxed cake mix and boxed gelatin. If you don't want to mess with cake, there's a crown jewel dessert that offers the same multicolored jello artwork within whipped topping. Whichever take on the crown jewel you choose, its fun colors are sure to captivate both adults and kids even today. The Tunnel of Fudge cake was a second-place winner at the 1966 Pillsbury Bake-Off contest. A clever baking technique separates the chocolate cake batter into 2 portions with hot fudge in the middle and a trail of walnuts or pecans. There are 2 keys to baking the Tunnel of Fudge cake to perfection. The first is the bundt pan, which became a household staple after the Pillsbury contest, thanks to this cake. The second is 1 package of Pillsbury Double Dutch Fudge Buttercream Frosting Mix, which Pillsbury discontinued. While the company has provided a recipe adaptation using powdered sugar and cocoa powder, the result is a pale imitation of the original recipe. Although online bakers have found some success with a few modern tweaks. The end result of the Tunnel of Fudge cake is a fudgy molten core that rivals any molten lava cake found at restaurants today. But be warned if you plan to recreate it at home. Pillsbury recommends not going light on the nuts for the best tunnel cake results. The cool and creamy grasshopper pie gets its name from its pastel green hue, akin to a grasshopper, and is inspired by the early 1900s crème de menthe and crème de cacao cocktail of the same name. The exact origin of the grasshopper pie is unclear, but it's believed to have started circulating in cookbooks in the early 60s as a means of selling products from specific alcohol brands. Its popularity was proven when the St. Petersburg Times was inundated with grasshopper pie recipes in 1968, after publishing a letter from a reader inquiring inquiring about one. Grasshopper pie was still a commonly enjoyed treat into the 70s, but its popularity dropped after that. So what makes this pie so popular? It may be the easy, no-bake nature of the grasshopper pie, making it perfect to prepare for a summer day. The pie is set by using melted marshmallows as the base for the boozy filling, with some recipes even adding a touch of white chocolate liqueur. After the pie is assembled into an Oreo cookie crust, it's popped in the freezer for a few hours. While you may see grasshopper pie make an appearance on certain green-themed holidays, we think the mint and chocolate combination deserves a place on the dessert table year-round.
Undoubtedly, this former staple of New England tables needs a new name. Maybe something like Molasses Delight, or how about a rum and vodka? The main ingredients are the base ingredients of rum and vodka, molasses and corn. But maybe that would make too many people think it's alcoholic. According to What's Cooking America, this dish has also been called Indian mush. But that's maybe even worse. In its earliest incarnation, which dates back to around 1796, this dessert was little more than a cornmeal mush with a dash of molasses added for sweetness. It has roots in an old-timey English dessert called hasty pudding that dates back to 1599. And if that doesn't sound appetizing in the least, don't worry, it gets better. Later recipes added things like raisins and spices, and in the handful of places where it's still served, it's often accompanied by vanilla ice cream. Since the pudding is served hot and the ice cream is cold, some have taken to calling it heaven and hell. That's not a bad name. Massachusetts Plymouth Plantation is a living museum that focuses on life in the 17th century and has gone to the trouble of recreating some authentic dishes that would have been found on local tables in that era. According to Boston Magazine, they hold their own Thanksgiving celebrations with these authentic recipes, and one that sounds absolutely delicious is Narragansett strawberry cornbread. Strawberries were a well-known treat. They even got a shout-out in the journals of Massachusetts Bay Colony leader John Winthrop. But it was the Narragansett tribe that first mixed them into cornbread. There are a lot of cornbread recipes out there, and it really is as simple as mixing in some strawberries. Or, as a taste of history suggests, other dried berries. Just remember that if you're going authentic, it should be a recipe that doesn't use dairy or eggs. It's the perfect dessert for anyone who doesn't want to follow a heavy Thanksgiving meal with something overly sweet.
But you can't have my cornbread, that's for damn sure. Because if you try to take my cornbread, part 2 of my killing spree gonna begin up in here on your ass right now.
Pumpkin pie is hardly something that needs to make a comeback. It's the Thanksgiving dessert, and it's not going anywhere. But this is the original, which looked pretty different. Settlers really weren't impressed with the idea of eating pumpkin and scorned the idea until scurvy set in. It was native people who showed them how to do something tasty with it. According to What's Cooking America, there was no crust. And for good reason. There were no ovens around that would have been capable of baking one. The process was likely just cutting the top off a pumpkin or other type of squash, taking out the innards, and baking it over an open fire. The Huffington Post reports that it would pretty quickly bake down into a version of pie. The pumpkin would have been sliced, and the inside would have been hot, tender, sweet, and delicious. It's easy to modernize, too. Use your oven, and make sure you pick a pie pumpkin and not a carving pumpkin. Nantucket cranberry pie is not precisely a pie in the typical sense. Instead of filling in a crust, it's basically a one-bowl cake-like batter poured over cranberries. It's baked until the cranberries turn soft, yet remain tart, and the cake becomes light and delicious. It's got all the flavors you want for Thanksgiving, and here's the bonus. It's nowhere near as heavy as a slice of pumpkin pie. Where did this amazing idea come from? According to Taste, the most popular recipe comes from a novelist named Laurie Colwin. It was published in an issue of Gourmet magazine in 1993. And we hate to break it to you, but the 90s are officially old school. Abraham Lincoln is the president who declared Thanksgiving a national holiday. So what about enjoying a dessert right out of Mary Todd Lincoln's cookbook? Food blogger Tori Avey says Mrs. Lincoln's preferred cookbook was Miss Leslie's Complete Cookery. And nestled in its pages is a recipe for pumpkin pudding. Imagine a super moist dessert that's a cross between cake and pumpkin pie filling. And you've got the general idea. Miss Leslie's version was definitely decadent, served with a rich cream sauce and made with traditional pumpkin pie spices and a dash of rosewater. The Thanksgiving we celebrate today doesn't have a whole heck of a lot in common with what America's earliest settlers would have done. Tori Avey says we can largely thank Sarah Josepha Hale for most of the traditions we observe. In 1827, Hale published a novel called Northwood, A Tale of New England. It includes a whole chapter about a Thanksgiving meal and the spread of roast turkey, stuffing, gravy, veggies, pies, and cranberry sauce sounded so good, it ended up being the blueprint for Thanksgiving dinners for decades after. So what better way to celebrate the mother of Thanksgiving than by bringing one of her desserts back to the table? It's an easy one, too. The recipe for her apple pudding was published in her 1841 book, Early American Cookery, and it's basically a sweet pudding made from stewed apples, lemon, brown sugar, cream, and eggs, then baked like a pie. What the heck is a sonker? According to Open Table, the idea of the sonker can be traced back to North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains. It's basically a pie-like dessert made with a simple crust and filled with whatever was handy. It was a way to use and preserve everything in a crust that was easy to make with the most basic of ingredients. There's no one right way to make a sonker, but Epicurious says it's the sweet potato sonker that needs to make an appearance for Thanksgiving. It's got an impressive down-home pedigree, too. It's the favorite sonker in Mount Airy, North Carolina, the hometown of Andy Griffith. It's basically the official dessert of Mayberry.
The first thing we do is plan a little dinner.
In the mid-1940s, wartime rationing made it impossible to make many longtime favorites, and desserts were at the top of the list. Sugar was in short supply, and it's not dessert if it's not sweet, right? According to the Louisville Courier-Journal, those Thanksgivings were tough, and not only because of shortages. In 1945, the paper wrote, "In spite of anxiety, in spite of the knowledge that families are mostly incomplete, we still mark the day on our calendar and try to give fully to continue the tradition in which we consciously give thanks for our many blessings." Those are somber thoughts. That same year, the food editor suggested a way in which cooks could, quote, fulfill the family dream of apple pie. And it's a delicious solution that needs to make a comeback. Instead of sugar, Marguerite T. Finnegan suggested using molasses, honey, or corn syrup as a sweetener. Her deep dish apple pie calls for a little more than half a cup of honey, and that sounds delicious. The turkey's done, the table is cleared, and the Thanksgiving dishes are in the sink. Everyone's filled to the brim, but this is the exact time that something hot, sweet, and comforting is just what everyone's craving. So why not heat up some Dr. Pepper? Sounds weird, right? Serious Eats says the idea was essentially created by Dr. Pepper's marketing team in the 1960s, and that pretty much explains everything. Cold drink sales tended to drop off during the holiday and winter months, and by advertising this hot and fizzy drink, they were hoping to boost their fourth quarter numbers.
Yes, Dr. Pepper is delicious cold or hot.
It was popular for a while, and it's still popular in some pockets of the South, but it's largely faded from mainstream consciousness. Here's the big shock, though. It's better than you'd expect. It's just Dr. Pepper heated with a thin slice of lemon. It's great for the kids, and old advertisements thought of the grown-ups too. They suggest adding a dash of rum for a drink they call the Boomer. Steamed cranberry pudding is a pudding in the British sense of the word. It's anything steamed in a container. According to British food history, the ancestors of the puddings we're suggesting you whip up this Thanksgiving were once a serious delicacy. They were sweet and spicy dishes, usually served as a part of the main meal, along with the side dishes. We save the sweet things for dessert now, and a recipe for steamed cranberry pudding, plucked from the pages of a cookbook written at a time when women were identified solely by their husbands' names, is just the right amount of sweet. The one Baltimore Fishbowl found was written by Mrs. A. Van Eerden, and it's a British pudding with a distinctly American twist. It's made with cranberries, molasses, cream, butter, and just a dash of vanilla, among other things. Then the super thick mixture is poured into a can, and it's steamed rather than baked. It's delicious, different, and a nod to the place from which those original settlers hailed. For many, Thanksgiving is one of the few times of the year they see certain members of their families. And it can often be a reminder of why that is, whether it's the aunt who wants to know why you've made certain life choices, or the grandfather who's fond of remembering just how things were better in the old days before you were around. Boy, do we have a dessert for those folks. In 1957, the Monroe News-Star ran a piece promising that the cranberry soufflé salad was going to, quote, be the highlight of your meal. It was lauded as a fast luxury touch, and it could be made quickly by popping it into the freezing unit. The basics involve lemon gelatin, cranberry sauce, celery, and pineapple, all mixed and frozen together. Oh, and the surprise? There's a heck of a lot of mayonnaise mixed in there too, with the footnote that, if you like, You can garnish it with more mayo before you serve. It hung around for a bit. Hellmann's published its official recipe in 1958. It's exactly what you should make for that family member who's always speaking so fondly of the good old days.